Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Monday Q&A, so let's knock this out. First question. Thoughts on refeeds and leptin? Heard a short refeed of 5 to 24 hours has minimal effect on increasing leptin, only good for increasing glycogen and psychological factors, and doing a refeed of at least 72 hours is needed for the hormone to increase. Yeah, and we run into a problem there. Sure, your leptin can increase, which can help in some ways with a little bit maybe your metabolism and appetite. However, a 72-hour refeed is probably going to start putting body fat back on you, whereas in a 24-hour refeed, you can usually absorb a massive amount of carbohydrates, get some glycogen supercompensation without storing any body fat. So, it's kind of like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not necessarily helping you. Just don't do 72-hour refeeds. Stop worrying about leptin. Truth be told, yeah, leptin is very important and beneficial in a lot of ways for your dieting. But you're focusing on a single factor there that we don't fully understand. It has never seemed to be necessary for people to really focus on leptin in order to get ultra lean. And again, we just don't have enough data and research on it to fully understand all the mechanisms to elevate it and to take advantage of it. So I really wouldn't worry about micromanaging something like that. Look, just do your half day or 24-hour refeeds. Make them work for you, get that glycogen back so you can train harder and call it a day and quit worrying about things like the leptin until we really understand this better. It just isn't necessary for most people to get the results at this point. Sure, it's an interesting topic, but we just don't know enough about it to start making definitive statements in terms of manipulating leptin for fat loss diets. We just don't know enough about it yet. Let the science catch up. All right, next question. Alternatives for shrugs, constantly pulling muscles on upper portion, no matter how careful, slow, or light I go. Well, I can't see your form, so I don't know what you're doing wrong. It could be a technique issue. However, what it comes down to is that if you have an exercise that is hurting you and injuring you repeatedly, when you adjust your technique, you're adjusting the weight you use, and it's time to just throw that lift into the exercise graveyard. It's gone, done, get rid of it. Find something else. There's lots of things that work the traps. You know, if you do enough upper back work and middle back work in general and even delt work, your traps are going to get a lot of stimulation anyways. Now, for me, I probably don't do enough of that stuff, and so I don't have massive traps. But that's because I don't do a ton of that. If you're doing a lot of face pulls, even side laterals have been shown to stimulate the traps a lot. Any sort of rowing, anything that works the middle and upper back is going to stimulate the traps, and that stuff's going to be cumulative. If you do a lot of rows, a lot of face pulls, a lot of side laterals, odds are you probably won't need to do any direct trap work for your traps to get really big. So consider doing all those things instead of it, especially if you can do those injury-free. But if you're getting hurt doing shrugs, throw it away and just focus on those other things. Traps can get well developed off all that stuff, and particularly if you're deadlifting with it also. So roll with that. All right, next question. Does cooking vegetables severely decrease their micronutrient content? Should this be a concern? Not really. People make a big deal out of this, but a lot of us are eating a lot of veggies because we want them for our diet, for satiety, for nutrition. The odds that any of us are going to be deficient in any of these nutrients that are there is going to be slim to none. And yeah, sure, cooking vegetables, now light steaming, probably nothing, but cooking vegetables, yeah, in some cases could damage or remove up to 40 or 50% of the micronutrients. But if you're eating from one serving of broccoli or spinach or whatever you happen to be consuming, if you're already eating 3 to 4 times the amount you need for ideal intakes for health, and you lose half of it, does it really matter at that point? If you're getting still, after you've lost it, over double what you need for an entire day from one sitting of that veggie, does it really matter? That's the thing. These green vegetables are so micronutrient rich in a lot of the important nutrients that it doesn't matter if you're losing a bit of them through cooking. If you enjoy it more and it makes it more palatable, why worry about it? Just cook them and eat them the way that you want them, and at least you're getting lots of vegetables in. Problem solved. Quit trying to micromanage this stuff. It doesn't matter that much. All right, next question. Gaining muscle after anorexia. Are there any physiological issues? There are a lot of issues after anorexia. However, gaining muscle really shouldn't be one of them. Now, you're going to go through a period of time where you're going to have to regain muscle. You might struggle to eat enough and deal with the gaining weight. So you might have psychological issues that mess with your diet coming back into the eating and regaining weight. But actually, once your hormones start rebalancing out, once the food starts coming back in, gaining muscle should come really really fast. You're going to essentially end up with 2 sections of noob games. Now, it's going to take you longer to get as big as you should be because you're starting so much smaller, but you're going to get a big period of time that feels like noob gains, and then you're still going to be below where your biological normal level was at the beginning of training. And once you get back there through quick noob games of reversing the anorexia, you're still going to be able to probably experience very similar to normal noob gains after that. So you're going to get a really long period of time, possibly over a year after anorexia, to where you're really capable of gaining a lot of muscle. However, your real struggle is going to be coping with the psychological factors around that. And for women particularly, it's going to be the shifts in hormones can really be devastating to them for life after something like that. After anorexia or bulimia, unfortunately, in a lot of women, their reproductive system never really functions perfectly the way they want it to, and they always have hormonal issues and issues with their periods and things. But for men, less of an issue there. Eventually their hormones will be back where you want them, the overwhelming majority of the time. And again, once all that starts coming back online, the muscle's going to come back quickly, should be good to go. Just worry about those psychological factors that are going to mess you up and stop you from being able to eat enough sometimes, because you're going to have to deal with that for a long time if you've been a severe anorexic, and that's just the nature of it. All right, next question. I have a friend who recently started lifting. He's been running Candito's program, and he's already been injured 2 times within 5 months. His form is textbook. I've had him watch every form video imaginable. He has progressed incredibly fast, not far away from your 1-year strength standards already. Before this, he hadn't done any sports for over a decade or just sat on his ass. He really wants to get strong fast so he can start competing in powerlifting. Do you think he's pushing himself too much and his body can't keep up due to fuck all for a decade, hence the injuries? What do you think? He's probably got mobility issues, connective tissue injuries, posture issues as a result of being sedentary for a decade or longer. However, that aside, the one thing I would look at, especially if he's making those type of gains in 5 months, he's near my 1-year strength standards at 5 months and he keeps getting injured. People don't always want to accept this, but tens of thousands of people, if not more, if not millions of people, use anabolic steroids and other PEDs. He may be jumping on a bunch of gear or even a little bit of gear a lot sooner than he's really able to handle it, and that could be contributing to the injuries. And maybe he just hasn't told you yet, but when I see something like that, that's kind of a red flag for me that there's a pretty good probability this guy's jumped on some gear. He's running a very effective program, but he doesn't have his connective tissue and posture and muscle balance right. He's doing a very brutal, effective strength program and then throwing some gear in too early, and he's getting too strong too quickly and injuring himself. Now, and it may not necessarily be drugs there. It could just be, again, the fact that he hasn't built up his mobility and posture and everything to where he needs it to be getting strong that quick. And he just needs to back off a little bit and work on those things a little more and work on the muscle balance a little more before he goes back to pushing himself so hard and work on all his mobility issues. But again, I would be very suspicious of him going on a little bit of gear at this point and that contributing massively. All right, next question. Any appetite tips for binge eating? I've suffered from bulimia in the past and worked through all of those issues. I'm sufficiently happy. I manage stress well, etc., but there's still a psychological component that drives me to eat 6 to 7,000 calories in one sitting. I am trying to maintain my weight currently. I know that feeling. I've never been bulimic, but my appetite is insane. If you're like me, this is where we got to jump on the guys who talk about if it fits your macros and flexible dieting. For guys like us who have this capacity to eat limitless calories, that doesn't work. You've got to limit it to certain days to where you're eating your treat foods, and you just got to eat bro most of the time. And that's what I'm having to do to have lost this 40 pounds. I'm having to be really, really strict with what I eat all the time. Very few exceptions. I get a little loose. Allow myself some leeway maybe once or twice a week at the most, and only one real cheat day a month. And that's what's been working for me. That's what I got to do. The other strategies, again, if you're a big binge eater like that, you need to let your stomach shrink a bit to get used to the smaller volumes. So over time, just focus more on higher nutrient food, lots of high satiety foods like tons of veggies, tons of salads. And the other big trick, and this works for me because I do like to go out and eat a lot. I cook most of my food at home, but I do like to go out and eat to be social, whether it's just with friends or dates or whatever. So when I tend to go out, I do the same thing. Like I'll get a steak and a bunch of side orders of veggies, and I will sit there and eat it very, very slowly, little small nibbles, Take your time and eat everything really, really slow and chew it completely before you swallow, and then try to get a big sip of water after every single bite or two. And those things will help just reduce the speed at which you eat, because for those of us who are big volume eaters like that, eating speed is a big deal. So it's really good if you go out and eat socially also like that, because then other people are seeing you and you can pace yourself. And if you're talking to people and enjoying yourself, you can just slowly pace out a meal that might only be 800 calories. You can pace it out over 30 or 40 minutes by using strategies like that. And that can help you to eat slower, because then you're observing other people and you're not wanting to finish before they are. And so that can be a good tool for you also. But you can do the same thing at home as well. But sometimes a social setting can help with that a lot. And then it makes you really focus on that, because you don't want to finish your food before other people are done. Whereas when we sit down volume eaters like that and we eat alone, sometimes we just inhale it. So you can work on it in both directions. Just a tip there. All right. Next question. Hey Jason, I'm mostly interested in bodybuilding, but would like a respectable squat. 1 rep max is currently around 170 kilograms. That ain't bad, bro. That's pretty good. What do you think of a 4-day Bulgarian lite approach for squats, working up to a daily min max with 2 to 3 back off sets, followed by either push or pull upper body work? I feel like this approach would really appeal to a lot of your followers. Man, if you're wanting to increase your squat and still keep balance and get a lot of accessory work in, because you are a bodybuilder, so you are a bit more concerned with the physique side, I think that's a fantastic approach, because that squatting 4 days a week like that heavy and doing training maxes and a little bit of back off sets, that's going to really improve your squat dramatically. And you're still getting you probably get 2 pull days and 2 push days in every week. So that's balancing everything out great. And it lets you get all the accessories you want. So it lets you really prioritize your squat while still getting all the additional balancing work that you want for your upper body at a sufficient frequency. I can totally get behind your plan. Could I endorse something like that for your goal? Absolutely. And I think even for you as a bodybuilder who wants a better squat, that's a good approach. I can back that. Go for it, brother. All right, next question. I work a job that involves essentially long hikes every day. Some days are more strenuous than others. While I have adapted to it a long time ago, those extra strenuous days kill my legs. I've been running your novice 5x5, but doing 3x5 squats on the days that my legs are dead and I have no drive out of the bottom of the squat. Is this acceptable, or do you have another suggestion? Yeah, you're struggling to adapt to those squats at that frequency and volume, and then you're taking those long hikes. This is what I talk about with the novice program. The novice program is written for people who have a lot of recovery time. They don't have super active lifestyles, and their focus is absolute maximum hypertrophy with a secondary focus on strength. It is really a maximum volume approach, and it will vary a lot of people. Because of your job, it's probably not the best routine for you. You have to do a lot of physical activity outside of the 3 days a week in the gym on the program. So for you, that other program, the linear hypertrophy program, is probably going to be a better choice for you, because the overall workload is lower. The recovery is easier. Hell, you even get a program deload week. That program is written for the guys like you, the people who have more active, busy lifestyles, who still want to get as much hypertrophy as they can and minimally impact their recovery. You only really have 1 week on the linear program that's really tough and beats you up out of every 6 to 7 week block. So I would recommend that over the novice program for somebody in your situation. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.